Mailbag edition of Locked On New York Rangers. How do Ranger fans really feel about Mike Sullivan and Chris Drury? Let's find out.
You're Locked On the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1313 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, Jon Chik. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, and we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So yeah, going to go ahead and dive right into the mailbag here, going through some of your questions, your comments in the YouTube section and whatnot, and basically just moving from one topic quickly to the next. I figure we're overdue for this anyway. You know, it's always good to hear from you guys and hear some varying opinions as it pertains to the Rangers and everything that's going on in Rangerland. And we're going to begin with a group of comments and questions that pertain specifically to Mike Sullivan and Chris Drury. Drury obviously signing the extension with the Rangers this offseason, which was not all that warmly received by, I think, the majority of Ranger fans. I think that's probably the nicest and most diplomatic way that I can possibly put it at this point in time. And then also Mike Sullivan. People seem a little bit happier about Sullivan than they do about the Drury extension, but I think there was kind of a movement from Ranger fans to kind of push this team to think outside the box a little bit and go with somebody that might be a first-time NHL head coach. But they did not do that, and we're going to get your comments on, like I said, everything surrounding this team. And we begin with some questions and comments that specifically pertain to Sullivan and Drury. We have Michael Trano. He talked about the Cuylle situation and the possibility of him potentially being offer sheeted by another team. Michael says, I am worried Drury will take the compensation. Yeah, I mean, never say never, Michael, but I don't think you've got anything to worry about. When you look at what the Rangers have done, really ever since, I would say probably the trade of Jacob Trouba, everything the Rangers have done from that moment onward, they are making moves with this upcoming season in mind. Now, of course, they tried to retool on the fly this past season. It mostly led to disastrous results, and the Rangers, of course, go from the President's Trophy winning team to missing the playoffs entirely. And obviously that was not good. But if you're worried about Drury valuing, a second rounder over Will Cuylle, or potentially even a first and third rounder over Will Cuylle, which is what the Rangers would likely get should a team offer sheet him and the Rangers decline to match, I wouldn't be worried about that at all. Because like I said, everything that Drury has done, leading up to this upcoming season, the past 9 months or so, it's with next season in mind. You can look at the trade for JT Miller. You can look at the trade of Capo Caco for Will Borgen, the subsequent extension for Will Borgen, the extension for Lafreniere, the extension for Igor Shesterkin. Everything is aimed toward next season. And if you don't like all those moves, that's fine. I understand. But be that as it may, again, he is looking to compete this upcoming season. And so it wouldn't make any sense to move on from Will Cuylle with that being the case. You're not going to value those draft picks more than you value probably one of maybe the most promising young player on your team right now. So I wouldn't be worried about that at all. Rods has this to say: if Cuylle gets offer sheeted after Drury extended Borgen and brought in Susie, I am officially done with Drury. That would be pretty bad. I mean, Cuylle could get offer sheeted. The mistake on the Rangers' part would be not matching an offer sheet or not clearing the kind of funds that you need to match an offer sheet for Will Cuylle. But I'm with you. I mean, it would be unforgivable if they let Will Cuylle get away. Mr. Campbell talking about the Drury extension. Just kiss Dolan's bleep and you get an extension. Drury is an unmitigated disaster. He torpedoed the Rangers' whole season. Well, they weren't getting past the Panthers anyway. They weren't getting past anybody this season, man. It was a brutal season. I mean, there's not much else you can say. Yeah, I mean, Drury seems to have Dolan's full trust, although if things go south this season, they miss the playoffs again and everything's a disaster and they have all these no-shows and Sullivan can't get through to this team. I mean, at that point, how can Drury possibly be retained, right? And I hope that doesn't happen. I hope the Rangers obviously compete and get back into the thick of things. But if that does not happen, I think Drury's going to answer for it with his job. He can only get so much rope, right? I mean, this can't go on forever if the Rangers continue to spiral this upcoming season. Christopher O'Keefe says, Dolan extended Drury to send a message to the players that they aren't going to just outlast a GM they don't like by dogging it for another season. Hopefully those underperforming and unhappy players will ask to be moved, knowing that Drury is not going anywhere. Yeah, look, you can critique Drury's performance and some of the moves that he's made, and maybe even some of the moves that he has not made over the past, calendar year, 18 months or so. I do think the most recent history with Drury has been his worst portion of time during his job as the Rangers general manager. I do think that's fair to say. But I don't want to hear about hurt feelings anymore from these Ranger players. I don't care if Drury hurts their feelings. You can critique some of the moves that Drury made. Hurt feelings, I don't care about that at all. So, yeah, look, maybe there are some players that really don't like him so much that they'd be more willing to leave. Players that the Rangers might want to move on from, whether we're talking guys like Mika, guys like Kreider, guys like Artemi Panarin. I mean, I don't know for sure, but the message has been sent. Either get on board or leave. It's really as simple as that. HW says, I think Drury should look at who will be available to coach the team in 2 years. I get that feeling that was kind of tongue-in-cheek, but yeah, I mean, when you look at the Ranger recent history, 3 years for Quinn, 2 years for Gallant, 2 years for Laviolette. I really hope that Drury is not already looking at options for the next Ranger coach, especially since Sullivan's his guy. Those two are tight. Drury has been interested in him for pretty much ever. So I hope that's not the way Drury operates. Another Joshua says, if Sullivan is not willing to sit veterans who play poorly, he's useless. Useless is a stretch, but I see what you're going for here. Look, I think Ranger fans and New York sports fans in general, it's one of the biggest things that we ask of our pro athletes is accountability. And it's one of the biggest things that we ask of our coaches, of our managers, in the case of baseball, accountability. When guys, it's one thing if they're not performing, but if the effort isn't there, they have to be held responsible in one way or another. And I think that's going to be one of Sullivan's biggest challenges. First of all, let's hope it doesn't get to that. Let's hope that he can push the right buttons and get these guys to actually play hard for this upcoming season. That would be nice. But if that doesn't happen, if guys are dogging it, if guys are showing a lack of fire, lack of intensity, lack of compete, then yeah, there have to be consequences for that in the form of healthy scratchings, trades, at the very least, diminished ice time and diminished spot in the lineup. Maybe you're out of the top 6 or out of the top 4 or off the power play unit, whatever it might be. Pete Rock says, the Sullivan hire locks up Sidney doing his farewell season as a Ranger. Keandre Miller should not be re-signed. We have seen enough. Let him walk. And then Matthew Melanich, who I believe is a Penguins fan, he was in the chat for a couple of episodes, says, there's a better chance I marry Natalie Portman than there is of Crosby going to the Rangers. I'm not really holding my breath on either of those two things happening, but with Crosby, I mean, look, never say never, right? It's not completely impossible, but it's pretty darn near impossible. I have learned as a sports fan for as long as I've been a fan, 30 plus years at this point, never say never, right? We've been very surprised by things that have happened before. Sidney Crosby is not coming to the Rangers for any one of about a million different reasons. So I'm not holding my breath there. Joe Santangelo said, agree with you. Think Alexis Lafreniere has 35 goals and 35 helpers next year. Not defending him, but our previous coach did not have patience for younger players. Very obvious. Major impact from all our young guys next season. Let's go Rangers. I would sign up for 35 in about 2 seconds from Lafreniere. I don't know that he'll get that high, but I do think he'll have a bounce back season. And as far as, Laviolette's handling of the young players versus Sullivan, I mean, Sullivan had success early in his Penguins tenure with a lot of the young players. And a lot of those guys are still very good players to this day. They were just getting started under Sullivan, made contributions to those cup-winning teams. Can he have similar success with the Rangers? I hope. It's kind of a catch-22 the last couple of years because Sullivan hasn't really developed young Penguin players, but they haven't had a lot of top-notch, high-end prospects to work with. But then again, Sullivan should be able to get the most out of guys that don't necessarily fit that description. So it is a little bit of a catch-22, but hopefully a fresh start and some young talented players such as Offman, Perreault, et cetera, et cetera. Hopefully Sullivan can get the most out of those players. Dave says, a sleeper player who can benefit from Sullivan is Chris Kreider if he's around. Sullivan thought enough of him to add him to USA, and if he was actually hurt this season and can come back healthy, he can actually be a contributor. He had 50 goals not too long ago and proven to be best on power play and PK. Yeah, I feel like Kreider, whether it's with the Rangers or anybody else, he's going to almost by default have a better season this upcoming year than he just had. He just wasn't himself, and maybe the injury did have something to do with that. I think probably at least had a little bit to do with it. But I think you hit on something important there. Kreider, his best contributions going forward to me are just what you said, the special teams. Still can be an effective power play performer, I would say. Wasn't great at it this past year. I mean, the entire Ranger power play was awful, if we're being honest. But I do think that his ability to be a net front presence, deflect pucks, hopefully clean up some loose change, I do think that is still there. And penalty killing, he's very good at that as well. So I think at the very least, if he is back with the Rangers next season, hopefully they can at least count on him in those situations. And if that's all he can give you, if he's not much of a 5v5 threat anymore, then maybe he's like a third liner going forward. And Kreider on the third line next year, I mean, hopefully he can at least play a third line role if he is back. We shall see. But I do also agree that Kreider does benefit from Sullivan. I've mentioned recently, I think Kreider has a better chance of sticking around with the Rangers next season, for better or worse, by the simple fact that Mike Sullivan is now the head coach. But we will see. Gil says, love your optimism, John. I understand why you think we should all be excited with Coach Sully. He's going to lose his hair with Drury and this veteran core. Dark days ahead, Ranger fans. Well, we try to be glass half full on here. And like I said, this past season definitely made that difficult, but we do our best. And, I would have liked to have seen the Rangers give somebody, their first shot at being an NHL head coach rather than going with a retread for the third straight time. But of all the former NHL coaches, I do think I would have put Sullivan near the top, or probably right at the top, if I'm being honest. We're going to go ahead and keep everything rolling in just a second. Going to talk about, focus a little bit more on the players in the next section. Talk about, transactions, trades, and whatnot. You guys had some interesting opinions there and some interesting takes, so we will get to that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app, it is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. There's all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan your long-term goals. There's easy collaboration as well. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off of your first year. All right, let's go keep everything rolling on this very special mailbag edition of Locked On New York Rangers. For the everydayers, stick with Locked On New York Rangers going forward. Going to be some more free agent talk, both about the Rangers in-house free agents as well as potential targets around the NHL for the Rangers. Some more draft talk as well. Want to do a mock draft, but that's going to take some serious homework. I got to learn the potential sleepers, the late rounds and everything, but we will get there eventually. That's always a fun episode, and we'll do that in the future. But for right now, let's keep the focus on the mailbag here. And we've got a couple of different comments here. We'll start with Big Red. He also had something to say about the Cuylle offer sheet. He said, I would say no, but the Holloway-Broberg situations from last offseason compel me to think otherwise. Yeah, he's referring to Holloway and Broberg, who were both offer sheeted by the Blues, got both those players away from the Edmonton Oilers, and I think all they gave up, I forget which was which, but one of those players was only a third-round pick that they had to send to Edmonton for compensation, and the other one was just a second-round pick. So we'll see. I do think sooner or later you're going to see that start to happen more often. Will this be the year of the offer sheet? Only time will tell, and we just hope that it doesn't affect the Rangers and Will Cuylle, and if it does, they at least match that offer. Mr. Hyde says, keep Susie, give him training camp. He will be fine. Yeah, we did an episode about Susie. I think that was actually the one right before this one, if I'm not mistaken, where I opined that go ahead and trade him because in my mind, the Rangers have precious few options when it comes to opening up a little bit of cap space for this upcoming offseason. And if you don't trade Kreider, and honestly, maybe even if you do trade Kreider, Susie is somebody that to me represents a way to open up some more cap space. He's only a little bit above $3 million per season, but that's more than it sounds like when you're in a cap crunch like the Rangers are. However, yeah, I mean, look, he could bounce back this season. By all accounts, whether we're talking about what he did with Vancouver, what we all saw him do with the Rangers, this past season was very likely his worst in the NHL. I don't think he's like a complete lost cause. There's limited upside at this point when it comes to Susie, but he is somebody that I think for the majority of his career has been a solid defenseman. And if he can be around the Rangers, learn the new system, which they're all going to have to do this offseason because now Mike Sullivan is here, learn his teammates and whatnot, I'm hoping he'll at least have a decent season with the Rangers if he's back this upcoming year. Browning, he was commenting on my episode where we talked about the possibility of trading Artemi Panarin and what that would entail and what the Rangers how they should look to go about it, if they should look to go about it. This is what Browning had to say about that. Trading your best player from last year would be absolutely bleeping brilliant. Yeah, so I'm picking up on the sarcasm there, and that's completely fine. I get it. I'm not sure if Browning actually listened to the episode or not. My stance on Artemi Panarin is you keep him for this upcoming season. First of all, he's got the full no-move clause. Let's get that out of the way first and foremost. So if Panarin doesn't want to be traded, there's nothing the Rangers can do. He's with the Rangers until the end of his contract, which has one more year left on it. However, if the Rangers get to a point and they're at the trade deadline, they're on the outside of the playoff picture looking in, and at that point, Panarin is open to waiving the no-move clause, then at that point, I think you certainly have to look into it and hopefully pull the trigger because you can get a lot for Artemi Panarin in a situation like that. But no, I would not trade him going into the season. You got to wait and see how things play out because the Rangers think that they can put the pieces back together and win this upcoming season. That's very clearly been the road that they've taken. Whether you agree with that plan or not, when you look at all the moves they've made, that's what they're looking to do. So trading Panarin while also doing all those things that I talked about earlier in the episode, that wouldn't make any sense at all. We have an interesting take here on Panarin as well. This comes to us from BA Wags LGR. Extend Panarin, give him 3 to 5 years. He is magic with the puck, even when everybody around him has collapsed. An all-time Ranger in my book, and Panarin sells tickets. Trade Keandre Miller, Kreider, and Zibanejad. All right, well, I mean, Panarin, yeah, he is an exciting player, and certainly, he's somebody that Ranger fans like watching. Selling tickets is not really a problem for the Rangers. That place is always packed, and it ain't cheap to get in that building. If the Raiders were having problems selling tickets, then tickets would be quite a bit less expensive than they currently are right now. But they're not, so they're not. It's really as simple as that. As far as the idea of extending Panarin, I'm not really feeling it. I mean, he's 33 now, so I think he has an in-season birthday. So he'll turn 34 this upcoming season, and then after that, he'll be turning 35. I mean, you give him even like 3 years, he's going to be 38 at the end of it. Not to mention that, if the Rangers have another bad season here, I mean, are we really going to do this? It's probably a situation where they're going to be looking to get younger. They're going to be looking to spend that money somewhere else. Now, Panarin's next contract won't be as expensive as his current one. I don't think there's any way possible. But even still, I don't think I would look to do that. An all-time Ranger, I mean, he's got his place for sure. I don't know that you could put him like on the Mount Rushmore or anything like that. But if you're talking like top 25 Ranger of all time, no arguments from me, none whatsoever. And certainly one of the best Ranger free agent signings ever in terms of, what he's done. The amount of offensive production he's had over the years that he's been here. Absolutely. Let's see. Jason T says, did we not learn from when we couldn't compete physically with Florida in the conference finals? Fox must go. His offense is nullified by his beyond embarrassing soft physical play. Mika as well. The Stanley Cup champs every year are the best checking team in the league. They got rid of Goodrow, They got rid of Goodrow and Trouba, which is evidence the Rangers management do not fully understand this. Yeah, look, Goodrow and Trouba, the problem with them Yes, they were clearly, I would say at this point, it's pretty obvious. They were the two leaders in that room. Trouba makes sense. He's the captain. And Goodrow, it makes sense too. He's one of the alternates. But it's pretty obvious at this point that those were the two that kind of set the tone for that team and held guys accountable. Because once they were gone, that went out the window. The problem is that they were both very overpaid by what they did on the ice. When you put the tangibles aside, the intangibles aside, I should say. Trouba, $8 million a season. I'm sorry. There's just no way he's worth that. Even Barclay Goodrow, I mean, he's a fourth liner. And I know he's one of those heart and soul kind of guys. I know he stepped up big in the playoffs a couple of years ago, but the guy's mostly a fourth liner, and the Rangers felt they needed to open up some cap space. So they did what they had to do. They got to replace those guys and find out who the next leaders are going to be of those teams, of this team, I should say. As far as like getting rid of Fox, no, I'm not there. I mean, first of all, full no move clause. Again, they hand those out like candy. But there aren't too many defensemen in the league that can do the kind of things that Adam Fox can do. Even in a down season, I mean, he's flirting with point per game territory as a defenseman. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, power play merchant, this and that. Yeah, fine, okay. But the Ranger power play was terrible this past year. He couldn't have gotten that many, he couldn't have benefited that much from the Rangers having this elite power play the way that he did the year before, because they just didn't have an elite power play. They had a bad power play. So I wouldn't move him. Mika, I think a lot of Ranger fans are just about done with him. But again, the full no move clause, there's not really a whole lot you can do. Dave S. says, is there a press conference scheduled? I'd like to see them also name a captain at that time. Miller captain, Trocheck alternate, Fox alternate. Enough with the 5 alternates. I completely agree with pretty much all of this. I'm kind of torn between Miller and Trocheck. I think I would still lean Trocheck a little bit, because with JT Miller, when things go bad, he doesn't always handle it very well. I mean, I love the fire. I love the intensity, but you saw all the drama that was unfolding in Vancouver. He had some immaturity issues his first time around with the New York Rangers. And, I like the idea of, Trocheck kind of being the guy to take the reins. He's the guy that's been here for a little while. I think I would go Trocheck captain, Miller alternate, Fox alternate. But those would be my 3 right there, as far as like who wears the letters next season. And I'm with you. I'm done with like the 5 alternates, the 6 alternates, the 12 alternates, whatever the Rangers want to do. For a while there, that kind of organically happened. I don't think the Rangers ever really set out to have 6 alternate captains at the same time, but it's just kind of the way that it went. And then it turned out, there were situations where, somebody like Adam Fox, like he's somebody that could wear an A at this point. The one year I think they were going to name a captain and then they chose not to. Now you've got 6 alternate captains. It was kind of a mess, but I'm kind of for that as well. Let's identify the 3 guys that are worthy of wearing the letters, and let's bestow that upon them and make this something that's actually worth it. Not a situation where we hand out letters like Halloween candy either. So I do like the idea of going back to the traditional 1 captain and 2 alternates. We have a question here from Derek. I was curious on your thoughts on a potential K'Andre Miller trade. What do you think a realistic trade would look like? Let's say Schaefer falls to number 2, which I doubt he does. Do you think the Sharks would trade their pick for Miller plus our 12th pick? Would that be crazy for us to do? No, I think the Rangers would do that in about 2 seconds, but I don't think the Sharks would really even consider doing that. K'Andre Miller to the Sharks isn't such a crazy idea, because they are a team that's rebuilding. They should have some cap space going into this next season, and they have draft picks to trade, so they could pull that off, but they are not going to give up the number 2 overall pick in the draft for K'Andre Miller. I know the Rangers would give them their 12th overall pick in this hypothetical, but no, they're not going to drop themselves 10 spots in the draft just for K'Andre Miller. There's just no way that I could see them doing that. The Rangers would do it in 2 seconds, though. All right, in just a minute, we're going to keep everything rolling. We're going to shift our attention to some of the funnier comments. There have already been a couple of funny comments in this thing, but there's a few that actually definitely made me laugh, and hopefully you guys get a laugh out of these as well. We'll get to that in just a second. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up today's episode of the Mailbag here by talking about, or rather going through some of the funnier comments that I've seen. And look, it's been tough, man. It's been a tough year or so as a New York Ranger fan. This season was mostly awful. I mean, how else can I say it, right? You guys watched this team just like I did. Hopefully, maybe some of these comments will give you guys a couple of laughs here at the end. We have John NY5. Rangers are a tire fire. Gonna be years before they can seriously contend. That's possible. I mean, things look bleak right now, but I don't know that I would go that far. I mean, they do have some promising young players on this roster. And just like 2 years ago, when everybody said that, or the pessimistic Ranger fans said that, oh, they all had career years, they can't repeat that. They all had basically career worse years this last year. I don't see them repeating that either. Like I said before, I think the truth lies somewhere in between. Like what we saw 2 years ago and what we saw this past year. I just don't think the Rangers are as bad as it seemed. It was an effort issue, and hopefully Mike Sullivan can get them to give an honest effort every night. We'll keep our fingers crossed that is the case. Mark Matter said, I don't care who you pair Mika up with. He is still an overpaid slug. Doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, look, I know Ranger fans have gotten sick of Mika Zibanejad, and it's completely justifiable. I think people are just kind of sick of the post-game comments, the seeming lack of accountability, the slow starts every season, just looking like he'd at times rather be anywhere else in the world than playing hockey for the New York Rangers. But I do think their best bet is putting him with JT Miller. That is something that I talked about in that episode. You get a better brand of hockey from Mika Zibanejad when he's with JT Miller. And as far as next year's opening night roster, that's the only thing I'm putting in Sharpie right now, because I'm assuming Mika's back next year. JT Miller centers the same line that Mika Zibanejad is on. Simon Andrew MacArthur says, I just breathed a huge sigh of relief that they didn't rehire Tortorella. I would have stopped watching the team for good. Respectfully, Simon, no, you wouldn't have. We've all been there. I've said it. You've said it. We've all said it. Oh, I'm done with this team if this happens. I'm done with this team if that happens. We all keep coming back for more because we're Ranger fans and we don't know when to quit. UMT says, this team is bleeped for the next decade at least. May as well keep Panarin for entertainment purposes. May as well keep Kreider also. Let him glide around for a couple more years. Yeah, they gotta figure out a way to get more out of Chris Kreider if he is back this upcoming season. And I think that's a big if as things stand. We have Dark Soul, who says, as a 53-year-old lifelong Rangers fan, there's no team I have more disdain for than the Devils, period. It's not close either. The most obnoxious, least knowledgeable, spoiled fans in the entire league. Gretzky called them a Mickey Mouse organization for good reason. Yeah, they're pretty high on my list too. As far as teams that I just do not like. Yeah, they're right there, man. It's them. See, I don't have the Islanders quite that high. The Islanders are like probably like bottom 5 for me, but in terms of teams that I just do not like at all, I mean, the Penguins, I'd probably have them at number 1 just because of the arrogance of that organization over the years and just getting sick of them for so long. You know, the whining and crying that we always see from Crosby and Malkin, that just never stops. So yeah, I think I would put the Penguins 1. The Devils might be number 2 for me. Yeah, their fans are something else, man. Not all of them. There's good people in every fan base. There's good apples and bad apples in every fan base in the NHL, the Rangers included. But yeah, I mean, their preoccupation with the Rangers is really something else. You know, they want to hang a banner for making the playoffs this year and you know, losing in the first round, and the Rangers didn't, and ha, we finished with a better record than you. And it's like, dude, you won 1 playoff game this year compared to 0 playoff wins for the Rangers. Just sit down and relax over there. And the funny thing is, neither one of these teams, the Rangers or the Devils, has won a Stanley Cup in a very, very, very long time. So neither side really has a whole lot of room to talk right now. But I'm with you, man. The Devils are pretty high up there for me as far as teams that I just straight up do not like. Brian Hanley. Hockey is like other sports. Players overpaid, jumping from team to team, coaches unable to coach, fans being suckers for high-priced tickets and food. That being said, I will watch my Rangers and hope, but getting damn sick of this BS. I'm 73. Please, you young guys can hang around for another 30 years, not me. Out BH. Yeah, a little morbid there, but I get it, man. Look, Brian, at least you got 94, right? Those of us that are around my age and older, and I'm 38 right now, they're around our age and older, we can at least remember the most recent Rangers Stanley Cup. There's people at this point that aren't even alive for it. If you're under 30 years old, you were not alive for the last Rangers Stanley Cup. And unless you're approximately, let me do some quick math here, always a risky proposition here. If you're 85 years old or younger, you were not alive for the second most recent Stanley Cup win. So I get it, man. And look, I hope you get another one. I hope we all get another one sooner rather than later. This fan base has been through it all. We've gotten some great moments in the playoffs over the last handful of seasons. Really going back the last, I mean, you can go back all the way to 94 if you want. There have been a lot of really fun, really exciting, thrilling playoff moments that this team has had. You can list any number of them, but it just never leads to a Stanley Cup. And that's why, you look back at like certain moments, whether it's Panarin in Game 7, whether it's Kreider with the hat trick against the Canes, whether it's, even something like 97, Adam Graves eliminating the Devils in overtime, right? Whether it's Derek Stepan in double overtime, whether it's the 3-1 comeback against the Penguins, whether it's the other 3-1 comeback against the Penguins, whether it's the 3-1 comeback against the Capitals, whether it's the Henrik Lundqvist shutout of the Montreal Canadiens in Game 6 to go to the Stanley Cup final. Those moments are all great. They're all fun to look back on. They're epic moments, but they could be 100 times bigger, any one of them, if any of them had led to the Rangers winning the Stanley Cup. And that's what I think just kind of sticks in your craw a little bit if you're a Ranger fan. But hope you get another one, brother. CeeLo had a comment on what the Rangers should do with the number 12 pick this season. Trade it for Kakko, LOL. The funny thing is, if Kakko had like underachieved for some other team other than the Rangers, that's like something that I feel like they might actually consider. I don't know that they would give away the number 12 pick for Kakko, but that would be the kind of player that like Drury would be interested in a weird roundabout way. Maybe not. I mean, I don't know, but defensive forward and everything, and somebody that has that first round pedigree, I feel like the Rangers would be in on that. We've got the Nature Boy on what to do with the number 12 pick. After getting Kakko number 2 and Lafreniere number 1 and seeing them killed by the Rangers, I really don't care. Fair enough. Edward Wool says, been watching Ranger hockey for over 55 years. I need more than one cup, please. Again, man, I hope you get it. My heart goes out to you guys that have been going through this for even longer than I have. And, anybody that is older and only has the one cup, or anybody that's younger and has no cups, those are the two groups that I really feel for. J.R. Wilson says, unfortunately, Sully is linked to Chris Drury, who's linked to Dolan. Hot oil pizza and hack musicians, especially spoiled brats, usually do not result in a Stanley Cup. I can't top that last comment, so we'll call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter @jchick17, and definitely subscribe to the Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.